Today we're on page 8 of the Chapter 2 Notes packet, Section 2.7, Solving Rational Equations. Steps we're following to solve rational equations. First thing, you're going to make note of when each fraction is undefined. Determine the least common denominator. Multiply the entire equation by the least common denominator to clear fractions. Solve the resulting equation. If any root is a value from step 1, reject it as an extraneous solution. So first step in solving number 1, make note of when any fraction is undefined. Okay, so our third fraction here has a denominator of x, so it would be undefined when x was equal to 0. So x cannot equal 0. Next, determine the least common denominator. The least common denominator of 6, 6, and x is 6x. So the LCD is 6x. We're going to multiply the entire equation by 6x. That means multiply each term by 6x. So that means x over 6 times 6x equals 5 over 6 times 6x minus 1 over x times 6x. Now, when we go to multiply here, we can divide out the 6's that are common to numerator and denominator. So we're left with x times x, which is x squared. Multiplying here, these 6's divide out. 5 times x is 5x. And the x's divide out. So negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. So we've cleared the fractions. Now we solve the resulting equation, which this one happens to be quadratic. So I'll subtract 5x and add 6 to both sides, bringing everything over from the right side to the left side. X squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So now I have a quadratic equation in standard form. So we'll factor it. The lead coefficient's 1. The factors of 6 that add to negative 5 are negative 2 and negative 3. So x minus 2 times x minus 3 equals 0. Set each factor equal to 0. You can skip this step and go right to the answers. So x equals 2 and x equals 3. Check 2 or 3 if they are a value from step 1, and step 1 was to make note when the fraction was undefined. We said that x could not be 0. So 2 and 3 remain as solutions. Next, number 2. X cannot equal, but if we replace x here with a positive 2, that would result in a denominator of 0. So x cannot equal 2. Look for our least common denominator. For x minus 2, 3 and x minus 2, it's x minus 2 times 3. For LCD is 3 times x minus 2. So we're going to multiply every single term by the least common denominator. Okay, now I'm not going to write it, but we're going to take each term. It's like distributing this over the parentheses. If we were to take our first fraction and multiply it by 3 times x minus 2, the x minus 2's divide out, so we would simply be left with x plus 2 times 3. Next, I'm looking at my second fraction, and if we were to multiply it by 3 times x minus 2, the 3's will divide out, and we're left with 4 times x minus 2. So minus 4 times x minus 2. And now, if I'm left with just my third fraction, 5 over x minus 2 times 3 times x minus 2, the x minus 2's divide out. So we're left with 5 times 3, which is 15. Okay, now distribute. And I'll pick up the negative 4. So 3 times x plus 2 is 3x plus 6. And negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. This is what we call a linear equation. There's no x squared term, it's not quadratic, so we just combine our like terms. That's negative x. Positive 6 and positive 8 is positive 14. And now if we subtract 14 from both sides, negative x equals 1, and divide by negative 1. So x equals negative 1. X cannot equal 2, so our value of negative 1 is the solution. And I'll just write it in solution set notation. Number 3. For what values of y do we have any fractions undefined? Well, if y was equal to 0, if y was equal to 7. So y cannot equal 7. For our denominators of y minus 7, 2, and y minus 7, the least common denominator is 2 times y minus 7. So we're going to multiply the entire equation by 2 times y minus 7. Right. So if I take my first fraction, 3y over y minus 7 times 2 times y minus 7, what divides out? The y minus 7s. So we're left with 2 times 3y. If I take my second fraction and multiply it by 2 times y minus 7, what divides out? The 2's divide out. So we're left with negative 3 times y minus 7. And then finally covering this up, 2 times y minus 7 times our third fraction. The y minus 7's divide out. We're left with 2 times 21. Now let's go ahead and solve. 6y minus 3y plus 21 equals 42. Combining 3y plus 21 equals 42. Subtract 21 from both sides. 3y equals 21. Divide by 3. And y equals 7. But check, y cannot equal 7. So there's no solution here, where we write the empty set. This we would call extraneous. Number 4, look at our denominators. X cannot equal negative 6 or positive 6. X squared minus 36, that's the difference of 2 squares. So let's factor that. Now if we look at our denominators, what is our least common denominator? This seems to be largest. Yep, x plus 6 will divide into it, so will x minus 6. So our least common denominator is x plus 6 times x minus 6. So again, we are going to multiply the entire equation, every single term, by x plus 6 times x minus 6 to clear our fractions. Okay, so when I go to multiply here, the x plus 6 in the denominator divides out with the x plus 6 in the numerator. So we have x times x minus 6. Taking our second fraction, timesing it by x plus 6 times x minus 6. Yep, they both divide out, so we're just left with the 16. And our third fraction, the x minus 6's divide out, we're left with 1 times x plus 6. Distribute, x squared minus 6x plus 16 equals x plus 6. It's quadratic. Let's bring the right-hand side over to the left-hand side. X squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0. Lead coefficients 1, so we go right to the constant. Factors of 10 that add to negative 7, negative 5, and negative 2. So we factor it, x minus 5 times x minus 2. So x equals 5, and x equals 2. check. When would our fractions be undefined? If x were -6 or 6, so both 5 and 2 are solutions. Number 5. Look at our denominators. X cannot equal 5 or 0. And factoring our third denominator, GCF(x), so the same here. X couldn't be 0 or 5, otherwise this fraction would be undefined. All right, now multiply through by the least common denominator, which is x times x minus 5. All right, go to multiply here. The x minus 5's divide out. We're left with x times x minus 1. Minus multiplying here. The x's divide out. We're left with minus 1 times x minus 5. And on the other side of the equation, all right, both divide out, so 20 remains. Distribute x squared minus x, distributing in -1, minus x plus 5 equals 20. Combining like terms, x squared minus 2x plus 5 equals 20. It's quadratic, so put it in standard form, subtracting 25 from both sides. X squared minus 2x minus 20. Oops. Hopefully you caught that. Subtract 20 from both sides. So that's a minus 15. And now the factors of -15 that add to -2 are -5 and 3. So factoring, we get x minus 5 times x plus 3 equals 0. Setting each equal to 0, I'm skipping that step, going right to the two solutions of x equals 5 and x equals -3. Check, right? But x cannot equal 5 or 0, so the 5 we reject, extraneous. In there. So our only solution here is -3. And our last one, number 6. Again, when would the fractions be undefined? X cannot equal -3 or -6. Now for this one, whenever you have two equal fractions, it's called a proportion, and you probably learned in the past that you can simply cross multiply. So if I cross multiply, x times x plus 6 is equal to 8 times x plus 3. Distribute x squared plus 6x equals 8x plus 24. Put it in standard form. X squared minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. Again, the lead coefficient there is 1, so we go right to the constant. Factors of -24 that add to -2 are -6 and 4. So x minus 6 times x plus 4 equals 0. Set each equal to 0. You can skip that part and go right to the solution. Adding 6, x equals 6. And subtracting 4, x equals -4. Check. X couldn't be, x cannot equal -3 or -6. So 6 and -4 hold as solutions. And this concludes our video for tonight.